Hello, and welcome to the Christian Idealism podcast. I am your host, Kyle Allender. This channel is mainly dedicated to Christian philosophy. However, I take a more academic approach to the various topics, and so this can be, you could say, an intermediate and sort of advanced podcast. That is because this podcast is linked to the Christian Idealism YouTube channel, and of course, this is where we can talk about things such as the philosophy of mind, the philosophy of religion. We're going to get into other fields as well that are least relevant to those. And, it's going to be fun, I think. So, this is the first episode of the podcast. Well, I guess you could say episode 0 because it's not technically an episode, at least a true episode. It's simply just just a regular old sort of intro of how things are going to work on this podcast. So this podcast is going to be sort of the main new thing regarding the channel. So, I, as the host of the Christian Idealism YouTube channel, have done videos for many years, but I started to get sort of worn down by them. And as you notice, I haven't been posting as much as I used to. And there's a few reasons for this, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds in this, episode. But I think it's helpful to sort of understand that, most of the people that want to talk about these things a lot of people have, podcasts that they do. And I've thought about doing a podcast for some while, but I haven't done it because I've been frankly too lazy to do so. But now I feel like I have more time to do it, and I found an easy recording device I could use. It's pretty easy to set up, so if I need to go back and edit stuff out, it's pretty easy. So this is how the podcast is gonna work. Now, of course, we're gonna sort of go into a lot of different fields. So I'm going to try my best to break things down. But one of the main things we're going to do in this podcast is we're going to, be reading philosophical papers, or at least I'm going to read them and sort of explain them, how they, what they're trying to argue, those sorts of things, and then maybe give some, feedback. That's one of the things we're going to do. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to think about, okay, how do we apply these concepts to everyday life? And obviously, that could be more challenging, of course, because, what is it that philosophy, like, how can you apply philosophy to life? Well, there's a lot of different ways you can apply it to life. For example, if you're, study ethics, you can also apply it there, and so on and so forth. So, another thing, too, is we're also going to be probably reviewing philosophy books, and I'm not just talking just ordinary philosophy books. I'm talking like really good ones. I've done reviews of things in the past, but here I'm going to do them here as well. So that's the other thing too. And then maybe I'm still undecided on this. I might talk a little bit about politics. There might be a few episodes on that. I will make my political views clear if needed, but just know that this is a mainly, philosophy podcast, but it could also, if politics gets involved, I could certainly bring in, political philosophy if needed. So with that in mind, that will be the main sort of gist of this podcast. I'm not going to, I want to keep it somewhat, at a understanding where people can, lay people can understand what I'm talking about. And so I'm going to try my best to bridge the gap between academic level philosophy and sort of just everyday layman philosophy, like, just how people ordinarily think, So, yeah, that's basically what I'm going to do. And I think it's helpful to sort of, outline that this is sort of an experiment for me. So I've never done a podcast before, although maybe I have. I have done one podcast before with a friend of mine, Tim Howard, but we kind of parted ways on that. There's a long history behind that. We're still friends, by the way. We still talk a lot, almost every day. But that podcast that we set up a few years ago isn't around anymore. Not going to explain why here, but let's just say that it's not there. It's pretty much dead right now. I don't know. Maybe we'll resurrect it one day, but yeah. Anyways, with that in mind, I'm going to start this podcast. It's my podcast, so it's independent of anything, and I just want to highlight that I think overall, this podcast again is going to be bridging the gap between academic level philosophy and what I call layman philosophy. But also, because I'm a Christian, I'm also going to be looking at this from a Christian perspective as well, so that people can sort of understand this from a Christian point of view. Now, of course, I know I'm probably going to get some non-Christians listening to this, and that's okay. We fully welcome you. I fully welcome you listening to what I have to say on these topics. And that will become important as we move forward. So yeah, that's basically that's what I've decided to do with the channel. I decided to turn most of the content now into a podcast because I feel like it's much more easier. People can listen in to whatever they want, right? I might do a few videos and I will certainly make those announcements, but for the most part, most of the content is going to be in a podcast. And I will try my best to accommodate, what people want to talk about. So with that in mind, I want to, again, this is just an announcement video. So I don't want to go too much into the weeds quite yet until I need to. But what I will say is that the first series of episodes that I'm going to be doing this podcast is going to be a commentary on my book. So I'm going to be publishing my book sometime in about a month or so. I'm not going to announce the date yet because I'm not quite there yet. But I will say that as soon as the book is published, I'll provide a commentary. In fact, I'll probably record, if you're listening to this, I'll probably already have some of the commentary already finished by the time you're done. In the sense that, I'm going to be starting my commentary or starting to record my commentary even before publication. And then once publication comes out, then you can listen to some of the commentary. And the commentary is really just a way to sort of, understand the concepts of what we do over and, so on and so forth, to provide a more clarity, right? And of course, because of the commentary from the author himself, if there's any, interpretive issues, like if people interpret what I say in the wrong way, I can clarify, expand upon what I actually mean when I, talk about certain philosophical concepts. But that's sort of the first thing I'm going to do is, again, I'm just going to provide a commentary on my book. After that, it's totally free game. We can talk about whatever we need to talk about. And at certain times, I might actually have certain guests on. So I haven't, I haven't decided that yet, how that's going to work. But yeah, I do plan to have guests on this podcast eventually. Once I can figure out, exactly how to do that, how to get them set up and stuff. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Anyways, with that in mind, I think it's helpful now to close this episode. Again, this is episode 0, so nothing really special, at least not yet. But things will be coming, trust me. And you won't want to miss it. Anyways, that's all I have to say, and God bless.